of urgency, reconsider the directive on the indefinite suspension on events such as weddings, concerts and parties. In its 23rd address to the nation on measures that the government is taking to curb the spread of the novel coronavirus, he added that private burials should not exceed 25 people. But the Event Vendors Association of Ghana says its members would lose millions of cedis due to the new directive. Let's get on Zoom now and talk to the representative of the event organizers, but also an event planner himself, an MC, who will also be joining us. So Richard Abbey is head of communications with the event and an event planner. Richard, good afternoon. But how exactly do they expect us to keep ourselves safe? That's the conversation I'm hoping to have with Richard, who is joining me. But
hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I hear you perfectly now. That's good.
Okay.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. Thank you too.
Right. As I said, I'm also being joined by an MC, a very popular one as that in Takwa, MC Nana K. Hello. Well, he's well known as Elvis as well. Hello, Elvis. Okay, Elvis will join us shortly. Richard, now you say that this is impacting or will impact, at least we have an example, so this will impact your members, negatively. But then how else are we supposed to keep ourselves or the people safe if we don't do this?
Yeah, it's, greetings to all the viewers and listeners. When we say the impact, the thing is that the fact we're talking about livelihood here. We understand that there's an issue of livelihood and an issue of death and all that, and we need to look at this critically. But EVAG as an association, for instance, has been consistent on this from last year, trying to propose a lot of mechanisms to control or to ensure that there are stricter adherence to protocols. And that's how we suggested the 100 quota. I mean, if you remember the number of 100, so that we'll be able to manage them and all that. And this is something that we have we have done and worked well with it. So we are taught that the president, even though we understand he's a father figure and he's thinking about the nation, would have also looked at it that in a manner that we will still come back to restriction but with a certain quota of 100, then would have been okay. So we are not necessarily against a restriction or a protocol or procedures and all that. We're just looking at the fact that a lot of our members are affected. And when I say membership, it's like even to the basic, or let me put most of our members are like more like informal. You take it from ushers, you take it from welders, you take it from painters. These are people we work with. You take it from DJs, you come up to people doing backdrops, decor, and all. It's a large number of people, and it's a chain, and they've been affected. And the fact that we've been told to refund some of the monies that they have, because there are people having weddings on Saturday, and if you look at it, from now to Saturday, caterers might have bought the things that they have to buy. So how do they refund monies to these people? A lot of people have traveled from outside to come for weddings, particularly maybe on this Saturday, families and all that, now spending about maybe $1,500, $2,000 and getting tickets. They cannot do that. So we our call is that this is a very dire consequence on the larger people. And don't forget that school just reopened, and a lot of parents have paid school fees, and then they come to meet up. There's no job, and it's an indefinite thing. Whether the president is unable to define the times. Luckily we'd have heard that, okay, they say marriage ceremonies and traditional weddings or traditional ones, which is on a smaller note, are allowed. But we're still thinking that, some of the people who had actually have dates for their weddings in February, in March and all that, maybe there could be, if we have a number of 100, which we had suggested last year, which we remember that we had several meetings with Eva going to the Jubilee House and all that, which the president had considered. Knowing our father as the president, maybe we'll give a considerable, or we'll give a listening ear to this one and probably come back with, let's say, 100 and let's manage it. And when it was 100, I can tell you that, the 1 meter controls and all that, was there.
But Richard, quite frankly and seriously, we have seen events where there is absolutely no adherence to the protocols, and mind you, this never really went away. The restrictions on social gathering never really went away, but it looks like we just took it to a whole different level, which has compelled us back to where we are now, don't you think?
Yeah, no, but I would not entirely want to agree with this. You see, let's not forget that, there have been events and all that, but don't forget that, like I said, a lot of us have been in the trotro, and then at the same time, we've had people being on what do you call it, going to the market on the usual day. I mean, so this is across, but it's a holistic thing that we have to look at. And I said that people eat every week. I mean, we know food is essential as it is. And so we cannot justify and clearly say that it necessarily had to come from there. So that's why I said at the point that it may be that the events, or let me say some of these weddings and other things have somehow been misrepresented by the people who had gone to the hospitals, because I believe GMA's call was the fact that people were claiming they had gone to events, so that somebody does a small party in his own house, I mean, maybe, and probably gets it there, he extends it to think that, okay, it is from maybe a wedding and all that. And we are particular about the fact that the specification on weddings, I mean, that is where, because in our protocols that we suggested, and which we're trying to follow with some of the weddings, were that event centers were having Veronica buckets and all that. We ensured, we talked to our members also at a point. So we ensure the very protocols, the sanitizers, and all. Some of the events that were done, we were on shields, ushers were on shields and all that. So
let me ask you this.
I want to extend the thing to, yes.
Let me ask you this. Would you consider, how about doing a scientific work, some sort of research that you can present, because you're talking about petitioning the president, petitioning this decision because you wanted to change, at least make room for some organization of events, right? Have you considered doing the, some scientific work to prove that the cases we're recording aren't necessarily coming as a result of the events that have been organized? Do you think this is something you could do? Because that will convince people well enough to say that, well, let's allow programs to go on with 100 people.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is that, like I said, I mean, let's not forget that we had this 100 thing. I mean, somewhere around, I think, May or so and all that, and there were compliance. Now, what has happened is that has a multifaceted problem. The thing is that in December, for instance, you see, I've always said that this is a new strain and it's becoming uncontainable, and that's something we have to deal with for some time. Yeah, and that's what's coming. Now, don't forget that we had open borders and all that. I mean, people had also traveled from outside the UK and all that. And these countries, as I place, I mean, UK and all that, had other borders close to them because of the new strain and all that. So it might be the benevolence of the country and the fact that we thought it wasn't a problem and all that. So these people have also come in as well. So the spread is coming from different sections, you understand? So if you are from a trotro and you go to an event, I mean, what happened that, I would have known? Scientifically, how do we prove that it was in the trotro? I think it's a very difficult task you want to give the event Vendors Association of Ghana. But I just want to believe that they might have forgotten. That was, people might have gone to a clinic and forgotten that they had gone to elsewhere apart from.
But Richard, you know that in the trotro, you are hardly talking. Do stay a little, be a bit stable for me. It looks like you're moving your camera a bit. I mean, you agree that in a trotro, for example, nobody is talking. But hang on, let me bring in an MC who is joining us also via Zoom from the Western region. MC Nanake, thank you very much for your time. Good afternoon. Okay, I think you're talking, but you're muted. If you would unmute, and you can hear me. So I was going to ask him, Richard, when you go for events, people are, I mean, I have seen videos where people are, there's excitement, and we're not blaming anybody.
Good afternoon, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, MC Nanake. So what is the story in the Western region? How, we know that people have booked, people have booked event managers. People have booked event managers, they've booked MCs like yourself. Well, what is the story there as far as the reimposition of the restrictions are concerned? And I need you to wear your mask for me. I'm sure you are in the office.
I'm alone where I find myself. Good afternoon, Gifty.
Good afternoon. Yes, go ahead.
Well, Western region, unfortunately, we've also been hit hardly by the various new protocols that government is actually.
Hello?
So we've been booked, events been booked, and then all that, but we need to respect the authorities of the state. Just as my senior brother Richard mentioned that people have been paid, planners have been paid, same way MCs have also been paid to plan and then book various dates for various events.
So let me make it more specific. Let me make it more specific. If you compare, when we went into the lockdown, if you compare how much you used to make, for example, from emceeing programs and the lockdown period, how much will you say you lost? If you can put a figure to it for us.
That's going to be a lot, because if every weekend or if every month you have 2 events, and then on the average you are charging between 2,000 and 4,000. That's on the average, 2,000, 4,000. And you have 2 events every month. So we can start from March, April, May, June, up until July, and even August. So that should tell you how much you have lost. And don't forget, you need to pay your cameraman, you need to pay your graphics guy, because you have actually recruited them on your team. And then there is nothing you can do about that one. So if we say we want to put pen and paper to it, we really went into hard times during the initial lockdown, and not expecting anything at all. This one also comes in. We're looking at quite some good amount of money, and then
that's been lost, and that's why the Event Organizers Association, the Event Vendors Association, they are saying that they want to petition, or they want to petition the presidency to say we can go on with 100 at least. But the thing is, people like yourself, MCs, etc., have been blamed for going for programs like this, and encouraging people to dance and shout and get together, and that's why we are seeing the spike. This is something Richard disagrees with. What do you think?
As you asked Richard, is there any scientific proof? There's no scientific proof that event hosts, MCs, hype men are quote unquote part of the spike or the figures shooting up that we are seeing. You can't really put to it. But for me, what I know is that for every event center I have been, I ask the protocol people, let's get Veronica bucket, let's get sanitizer, let's put on our face mask. Myself, if you go on my social media platforms, you realize that almost all my events that I handled from the time that we're asked to do 100 people up until now, you would see me in my face mask. And so we're actually taking... Speaking
of face masks, maybe you should just take it off. Since you're alone, you should take it off completely, because what we're learning also is that the way we wear it, we wear the mask on TV. The way people see it influences the way that they wear it as well. So if you're wearing it, you're wearing it. If you're not, then let's take it off. Exactly.
This looks much. Office alone.
This is better. This is better. This is better. So go on with the point you're making.
Yes. So. As I mentioned earlier on, you would notice that there is, I have my face mask or nose mask on throughout. You see protocol people with face shield and then all that. But if you should get to the partying time, people still had their face mask on to party. So I think if my senior brother and other event vendors are thinking of petitioning the presidency, I think it's in its right direction, because all other things, we don't really have critical statements on them. Because my brother mentioned Trotro. Yes, of course. How can we join Trotro full set? We get to church 1 meter. After church, we join Trotro again.
Okay.
And you see, that thing. So
but anyway,
need to take a look at our sector, and then also consider the costs that we bearing or we are actually losing. I think that would be giving us a fair share of the cake.
I'm going to wrap up now. Richard,
yes.
To what extent can we trust event? I mean, assuming the president decides to listen to you, to what extent can we trust that event organizers will be disciplined in the way they go about their duties, so that we don't see a spike? Already what we're learning from the Ghana Health Service today is that the variant we're seeing here is a whole different ballgame. It's very deadly, and it is spreading fast in our communities.
Yes, thank you very much. Don't forget that, like I said earlier, that it's the same Event Vendors Association of Ghana that last year had meetings severally, with government agencies and all that, to look at the way forward. And suggested certain kind of protocols, which actually were adhered to the extent that we said that on the dance floor, it should be only the couple dancing, that we shouldn't want to have people coming with handkerchiefs and all that. We made it clear that security too should be very tight, as it were, and make sure they follow the protocol. So the event vendors association has been very actively involving the stakeholders, even with the Ghana Tourism Authority, where we had engaged them and said that we have a database of these events. I mean, we can tell you when the weddings are taking place. If you want any chair in this country, we know where you can find them. They are members. You have about 350 members, and they're spread across the country, in the northern region and all that, and then in the Volta region. So we said we could work along together. Maybe the municipals could then become an authority to enforce that this 100 that we are talking about is actually being ensured, because we can give you a database from the cake person, we can tell you a database from the rental of canopies, that okay, this is what's happening in this particular weekend. That will be a guide or be the way to start. It could be a starting point to ensure that if we are saying that 100 people, then we'll have these authorities collaborating with EVAC to ensure the control. So we have always been there, in fact, suggesting these things. On the last year, for instance, I had a meeting in Jubilee House where our president was represented. So you can trust us in terms of, I saw you showing a video, and I realized, you could see that we had a nest. I mean, this is borne by the event planner as well. And like I said, this is affecting not only MCs are within our chain, because when we get the business, we are able to call the MCs as well to come and work. It's like a whole chain that has gone down.
I see.
Do you understand? I mean, it's a whole chain. So you can trust us with the 100, because we actually did it last year. I'm sure this whole thing happened from the festive seasons, coupled with a lot of campaigns and all that. That looked at, and the roadside.
Richard, I'm losing you, but I'm also running out of time. So.
That's fine.
Yeah, but I think the point is well made. I will wait to hear the outcome of your engagement with the presidency. If your petition goes through, we'll be here to talk about it. But thank you very much for your time. MC Nana K, I'll give you 30 seconds for your final words.
Well, finally, what I can say is that the authorities should consider the kind of costs that we incurring, and then see if partially they can allow for gathering and events. I think that would actually go a long way to help us. And then just as we've been doing when we allowed for the 100 people, various protocols would just be in place. So our concern is the kind of cost that we are bearing now. They actually need to take the decision on that and then come again. Since an event can't be blamed alone.
Well, you feel that the event management sector has been singled out because it also brings a lot of people together at the same place, enjoying and screaming and shouting and touching each other. We'll see how it goes, and I wish you all the best with that petition. MC Nana K is a very popular MC in Western region, and I spoke to the Event Vendors Association, their communication person, who is Richard Abbey. There. You're watching The Pulse with me, Gifty, and Pia. Still a lot more to talk about. We have a few more minutes left before we do sports. We'll box it all in. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.